In this video, we're going to show you how to install the performance brake caliper on your Jeep Wrangler, located right behind your front wheels. Using a 19mm socket, go ahead, loosen and remove your lug nuts. Once you remove the lug nuts, remove the wheel and set it aside. Now that we have the wheel off, it's going to be easier if I go over to the passenger side wheel. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to turn this. And that's going to give me direct access to the two bolts on the back of the brake caliper bracket. With the wheel rotated like this here, it's going to give us direct access to the two bolts on the back side of our brake caliper. Now on the new caliper here, you want to pay attention to the two slide pins here. You can see this moving back and forth as well as the other one. Now what we want to do is preventative maintenance. You want to peel back this boot. I'm going to push the slider pin out. Pull that right out like so. Do the same for the other boot and slider pin. Now if you notice, these came out and they're pretty dry. What we're going to do is we're going to put a thin coat of grease on these here, and we're going to put a little bit of grease inside the boot itself. We're going to do this on both sides. So when I say thin coat, it doesn't have to be all glopped up on there. Thin coat to help it and keep the metal protected from water and moisture. Go ahead and slide that pin back inside, push it through, and as it comes through, you're going to pop that boot onto the pin, continue to push it through, and the other boot will pop on like so. And go ahead and work that back and forth. Do the same for the other pin. Once you have that assembled, I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the excess grease. And this caliper is ready for installation. On the back side of the original caliper here, we have the flex hose going to it. Right here, on the back side of your brake caliper is a 14mm bolt holding the flex hose to the back. You want to go ahead and loosen and remove that. Before you do this, put a catch can or something underneath. Brake fluid is going to come out of this hose as well as the caliper. So you want to catch that. Don't let that run all over the ground. And when you remove this here, also want to pay attention. You remove the bolt. There should be a copper washer on that bolt side and one on the caliper side. You can see the copper washer is gone there, so that's good. You're going to take the new bolt with a copper washer on the bolt. And what we want to do is position this as if it was going back on. Feed that through. You're going to take the other new supplied copper washer, put it on the other side. You're going to take the new caliper and go ahead and get that bolt started in there. Once you have that lined up and that bolt has been started, go ahead and tighten that bolt down. Once that's been snugged down into place, I'm going to use my caliper hanging hook here. I'm going to hook the caliper, and I'm going to just bring it up and support it. I'm going to hang it up on the top on the spring bracket there. Next, I want to go ahead and loosen and remove the 2 bolts on the caliper itself. Using a 10mm socket, loosen and remove the slide pin bolts. Now I want to go ahead and pull the caliper off. We're going to use a pry bar, and on the top side, you're going to come between the bracket and the caliper and slide this out. Now brake fluid is going to come out of the caliper, so be careful where you're moving it. You can take that and dump that fluid out. Now that you have that off, let's go ahead and remove our brake pads. I'm going to pop out the inboard pad here, set that aside. And we want to pop off the outboard pad here. We're just going to tap it with a hammer. Now we can go ahead and dispose of the old caliper. Now on the bottom and the top are where the brake pads are going to be sliding. We're going to use our wire brush. You want to go ahead and clean this. And you want to get any scaly rust or anything off of that would impede the operation of the brake pad movement. Now for some reason, if you do have scaly hard rust on there, it's okay to go ahead and use a flat file. Go ahead and clean the surface, make sure it's nice and flat. Work this back and forth. Make sure the top is nice and smooth as well. If you want, you can remove the brake rotor as well. Our slides are in good condition right now, so it's safe for us to start our reassembly. Go ahead and grab your brake caliper. Just going to wipe down any excess brake fluid that might have came down onto that. Our next step is we want to go ahead and flip this over. We want to go ahead and install our brake pads. I'm going to line this up. So just tap this down. And there's pins on the back side of our brake pads. We want to get into these little holes. So we're just going to adjust this a little bit. Now you can see that our pad is fully seated. Inside these little holes here are where the tabs are for the brake pad. So you can tell that it's seated flush on both sides. The next step you want to do is take the other inboard pad. Going to line that up. Get those tabs inside that piston and just push them in. Push that into place. Now we can go ahead and install the caliper on the bracket. To bring this up into place, the first thing that you want to do is pay attention to these tabs on the bottom of the brake pads. These tabs fit onto the slider, onto the caliper bracket. So you want to lower this down. Make sure that the pads lock in first. Once those are locked in, go ahead and push the upper pads down and into place. Now we can go ahead and install our slider pin bolts. Before we do so, we're going to apply a little bit of anti-seize compound to these threads. I'm just going to push these in for now. And now we need to kind of work that caliper back and forth to get that to line up. those bolts started. You can feel them catching threads. Once you have those caught, we can go ahead and snug those down gently with our impact gun. The replacement bolts that come with the caliper are a 12 millimeter. Torque down our caliper bolts to 11 foot-pounds. Torque down your flex hose bolt to 23 foot-pounds. Right up top here above the flex hose, you're going to find a rubber cap. You want to go ahead and grab that and pull that off. Underneath this rubber cap is what we call the bleeder screw. You can use a small pocket screwdriver if you want to pop this off, or you can just pull it off like that. You want to go ahead and crack open that bleeder screw. Now what we want to do is bleed any of the air out of the caliper that is in here. So we're going to use our 10 millimeter, open this up and unscrew this a little bit. Now what we're going to do is wait for the fluid to come through the hose, fill up the piston and start to come out here. Now that we have the fluid coming out here, you can see that dripping. We have that fluid coming out, so go ahead and tighten the bleeder screw. And just gently snug that. You don't want to over tighten it, just snug it so that the fluid stops coming out. Go ahead and wipe down the residual brake fluid. Before you put the rubber cap back on this, the next thing you want to do, lower the vehicle so you can get into it. You want to go ahead and pump up that brake pedal and get this caliper to compress. You want to make sure that that brake pedal goes firm. Start up the vehicle. Do the same thing. If the brake pedal is mushy, you need to go ahead and start the brake bleeding process again. If the brake pedal feels good, come on back out after you shut off the vehicle, pop on the rubber cap, go ahead and install your wheel. After you've bled the brakes, you want to come on up top here and pay attention to your brake fluid reservoir underneath the hood. There is an add dot and a full dot. If you need to add fluid, simply open up the cap, add the DOT3 fluid as necessary, fill it up to the full dot, and then install your cap. Some cases you won't have to add anything. It just dribbles a little bit out of that hose down below or out of the caliper. Not a major issue, but make sure that this is at the full mark. Good, install your wheel. Get our lug nuts threaded on here. Once we have all these started a few threads, we'll go ahead and snug them down. Good, and torque down your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.